In liberal America, there's a phrase that still gets repeated like it's fact. Obama was the best president of our lifetime. But when you ask a simple follow-up,
why?
The answers usually fall apart, because when you strip away the speeches and the media glow, what's left is a record of failures. It's 8 years of broken promises and policies that fundamentally changed the direction of this country. This is the Obama presidency and the damage it left behind.
Obama.
January 20th, 2009, a new president stands on the steps of the Capitol.
What is required of us now is a new era of responsibility.
Barack Obama promises that the chaos of old is over, that the grown-ups are back in charge. At this moment, the country is still deep inside the Great Recession, and the bottom hasn't even hit yet. Which means this presidency won't be judged on nice speeches and charm, but it will be judged on its results. In that moment, Americans aren't just looking for policy, they were looking for hope, and Obama sold them that dream. Early on, the Obama agenda was framed as a moral reset, with healthcare becoming the centerpiece. The pitch was simple: keep what works, fix what doesn't, no one loses what they already have. Sounds pretty good, right?
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
Variations of that line would be repeated a whopping 37 times between 2009 and 2013 by Obama and his administration. They were basically telling the country, no need to worry, this will not disrupt your life. And then it did. March 23rd, 2010. The Affordable Care Act becomes law. The administration celebrates this as a historic reform, a generational victory. But every big reform eventually meets reality, and this one met it with a thud. On October 1st, 2013, marketplace enrollment for Obamacare begins. This right here is supposed to be Obama's victory lap. Instead, the website crashes. It was technical difficulty on the highest level possible. And according to a leaked memo, only 6 people successfully enrolled on day 1. The federal watchdog story on this was blunt. When initial enrollment began, many users could not successfully access and use the system. Failures, errors, slow response times, the basic function, getting in and completing enrollment, breaks right in front of the entire country. This is where the damage is not only technical, it's psychological. Because the failure happens after the certainty, after the speeches, after the period. The promise that you can keep your plan doesn't just weaken here, it blows up. Later on, PolitiFact would officially label this as the lie of the year, pointing out how often it was repeated, even though it couldn't actually be kept the way it was sold. Obamacare to this day is a disaster that Democrats so desperately cling on to, a failed promise that crashed and burned upon arrival. Then came another stain on the Obama legacy. During Obama's green energy push, Obama made sure to help his friends along the way, but it blew up in his face. A company called Solyndra is given a federal loan guarantee of $535 million, and it's approved by September of 2009. Solyndra's business pitch of cylindrical solar panels that capture light 360 degrees promises to innovate its way out of the so-called climate crisis. But behind the scenes, the Office of Management and Budget staff had warned by March 2009 that this deal is not ready for prime time, meaning the financials were shaky and the risk was obvious. But the White House pressed ahead anyway, eager to score a talking point to further solidify the green agenda. George Kaiser, a major Solyndra investor and Obama funder, had visited the White House multiple times before this deal was made. The administration raced the loan through so fast, the Department of Energy announced the commitment before completing full legal and marketing reviews. And all of a sudden, the market took a turn. Chinese manufacturers did what they do best and flooded the world with a cheaper version of the same product, driving prices down by 40 to 50%. Solyndra's fancy cylinders just couldn't compete. By September of 2011, Solyndra lays off 1,100 workers, shuts down, and files for bankruptcy. Taxpayers now have to foot the bill of $500 million because Obama wanted clean energy. The Inspector General's report is devastating. It finds Solyndra provided inaccurate and misleading statements to secure the loan. It finds DOE's due diligence less than fully effective and calls the result a loss of confidence in the entire program. To millions of Americans, the moral was simple. Obama and his team weren't just writing rules, they were also picking the winners.
Obama.
By the early 2010s, America was no longer judging the administration by outcomes alone. It was judging by its behavior. How was the power being used? Who gets protected? Who gets punished? And who gets ignored? And then across government, the same pattern kept appearing. First, the ATF and Justice Department, Operation Fast and Furious. A federal gun trafficking operation lets weapons walk right into criminal hands. When Congress investigates, the Attorney General is held in contempt, the first cabinet member in history. Documents are withheld, executive privilege is invoked. The message is that the Obama Justice Department answers to nobody.
I plead the fifth.
Then the IRS. The tax collector is caught using political keywords to target conservative groups for special scrutiny. The premise of neutral enforcement collapses. In response, there were investigations, apologies, but still, the damage was done. Then selective attention. February 2012, Trayvon Martin, a black teenager, is shot in Florida. Before the investigation even completes, before the facts are known, the president looks into the camera and says,
You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
To supporters and the non-political savvy, it's empathy. The president is lending his voice to grieving parents. But to those smart enough to look past the virtue signal, it is the president prejudging a local criminal case, inserting federal race policies where none belonged, and stoking the narrative before due process runs its course. And in the end, George Zimmerman, the shooter, was acquitted. But the message is sent. When the politics demand it, this administration would pick sides, and the sides it picks gets the president's public sympathy, while the other side gets the IRS. Finally, the National Security Agency and the Justice Department again. Thanks to Edward Snowden, the American public becomes aware that the NSA is collecting telephone data on millions of Americans. Meanwhile, the AP discovers the DOJ secretly seized its reporters' phone records. A Fox News reporter is named a criminal co-conspirator for doing his job. Different powers, different institutions, different moments, one consistent result. Oversight hits a wall. The stories don't share the same facts, they share the same architecture. Power expands, checks fail, the people in charge close ranks, and the public is left wondering if the referee is wearing a jersey.
Obama.
Foreign policy is where reputations get tested the fastest. Enemies probe while allies sit back and watch. Weakness is measured in days. And soon the world starts pushing back. First, you had Libya. The Arab Spring reaches North Africa in February 2011. Protesters fill the streets. Gaddafi responds with tanks and aircraft. By March, his forces are closing in on Benghazi, threatening to massacre civilians. The UN Security Council intervenes, authorizing a no-fly zone and all necessary measures to protect civilians. And NATO launches Operation Unified Protector. By October, Gaddafi is dead. The Obama administration calls it a victory for restraint, no boots on the ground, a dictator removed, a humanitarian crisis averted. Then reality sets in. Libya collapses into chaos. Militias carve up the country. The security vacuum spreads. The very intervention that was supposed to prevent a massacre creates a failed state instead. Then comes the night that burns into American memory. September 11th, 2012. A U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi is overrun by terrorists. Ambassador J. Christopher Stevens and 3 others, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glenn Doherty, are killed. The aftermath in Washington is endless. Hearings, investigations, finger-pointing. But the strategic lesson is sharper than the political blame. Libya, the model intervention, has produced a security nightmare. And the men who died in Benghazi are victims of a post-war vacuum nobody ever planned to fill. And then the next test arrived. Syria. August 2012, the president draws a line at the White House.
A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around.
Chemical weapons, he warns,
Would change my calculus. That would change my equation.
the red line is set. The world is watching. And 1 year later, Assad crosses it. On August 21st, 2013, sarin gas kills nearly 1,500 civilians in the Damascus suburbs. The missiles are ready. The Navy is in position. The world waits for America to intervene. But it doesn't happen. Instead, the president announces he will seek authorization from Congress, which basically means Obama didn't have the stones to make the call himself.
I will seek authorization for the use of force from the American people's representatives in Congress. So this morning I spoke with all 4 congressional leaders, and they've agreed to schedule a debate and then a vote as soon as Congress come back into session.
People were being gassed by the day, and Obama wanted congressional approval to even do something.
Give me a break. That's a bunch of malarkey.
And of course, Congress balks. Before a vote can even happen, a Russian diplomatic offer intervenes. Syria will surrender its chemical weapons and America will stand down. Obama literally gave Putin an alley-oop. The weapons are eventually removed, but the message is sent. The red line bends. What looked like restraint to supporters looks like retreat to everyone with a brain. At this moment, the world learned that American threats are negotiable, and that deadlines can become dialogues. Then a big fat stupid denial. January 2014. As ISIS is capturing territory in western Iraq, the president sits down with the New Yorker. Asked about the terrorist group seizing Fallujah, he waves it off. ISIS, he says, is just the JV team, the junior varsity, not a serious threat compared to Al-Qaeda. The assessment is casual, confident, but very wrong. 5 months later, the JV team storms Mosul, seizes billions in weapons, executes Americans on camera, and declares a caliphate stretching across Iraq and Syria. The president, who dismissed them as minor league terrorists, is now forced to explain how they took over major league cities. Then the consequences arrive at full volume. ISIS surges into the open vacuum. By 2014, the terrorist group has seized territory across Iraq and Syria, erasing the border, executing prisoners, and threatening Baghdad. The very war America had left behind roars back to life. On September 10th, 2014, the president addresses the nation.
Tonight I want to speak to you about what the United States will do with our friends and allies to degrade and ultimately destroy the terrorist group known as ISIL.
American warplanes are already striking targets in Iraq. Troops are returning, not as combat battalions, but as advisors, then as special operators, then as a permanent presence nobody anticipated. With that, the circle closes. Libya led to chaos. Syria's hesitation left a void. And now the United States is back at war in the Middle East, fighting the JV team it failed to take seriously until they had already won. The world isn't calming down. It's learning the limits of American power and testing them. The cost arrives later in surprise bursts with no clean ending.
Obama.
Eventually, every presidency lands back on real people. Not slogans, not press conferences, humans. And under this administration, 3 stories make the same point. The system is failing the people it claimed to serve. First, the veterans. At the VA hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, administrators keep 2 sets of books. The official book shows veterans getting appointments within 24 days. The real one, hidden from Washington, shows the truth. 1,700 veterans are waiting an average of 115 days for appointments. Some wait over a year, and according to a whistleblower report, at least 40 die in the process. The Inspector General finds the secret waiting list in 2014. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs resigns, but the damage is done. Men who wore the uniform, who asked their government for medical care, were left to languish and die in bureaucratic silence. Then, the soldier. May 31st, 2014, the White House announces Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is coming home after 5 years in Taliban captivity. The president stands in the Rose Garden with Bergdahl's parents, sending the message that America doesn't leave anyone behind. But the story curdles fast. Bergdahl's fellow soldiers say he walked off his post. Deserted. The prisoner exchange releases 5 senior Taliban commanders from Guantanamo Bay. The Government Accountability Office finds the administration violated federal law by not notifying Congress 30 days before the transfer. The House condemns the swap as illegal, and Bergdahl is later court-martialed for desertion. The price isn't procedural, it's this. To bring home 1 soldier, the government traded 5 terrorists and ignored the law. The promise of leave no one behind collided with the reality of leaving the rulebook behind. Finally, the invisible dead. Obama's drone war expands in secret. 10 times more strikes than under Bush. The administration insists the program is surgical with near certainty no civilians will die. Then the numbers come out. In 2016, the White House admits between 64 and 116 civilians had been killed in drone strikes outside of war zones. Independent monitors say the real number is 6 times higher, between 384 and 807. This is the moment irritation curdles into disgust. Because the costs are no longer theatrical, they are veterans dying on secret waiting lists, soldiers traded for terrorists, civilians obliterated by remote control, their deaths counted only when leaked documents force the government to admit it. The system promises care, it delivers paperwork, betrayal, and silence.
Obama.
The deepest damage is the kind that becomes normal. Not legal, not moral, but normal. When Congress won't move, the executive fills the gap. And each time it does, the next president inherits a bigger toolbox. First, immigration. In June 2012, the administration creates DACA by executive memo, deportation relief for 800,000 young immigrants. Congress had already rejected the DREAM Act. And Obama enacted it anyway by decree. 2 years later, he tries to expand it to 4 million parents, DAPA. The court blocks him. The Supreme Court splits 4-4, leaving the injunction in place. But the precedent is set. Immigration policy by memo, not law. And speaking of immigrants, I give props to Obama for deporting so many illegal immigrants. Well done, Obama. Great job. Then, appointments. In 2014, the Supreme Court unanimously rejects Obama's recess appointments to the National Labor Relations Board. The Senate had been holding pro forma sessions to prevent exactly this move. Obama appointed officials anyways. All 9 justices say no. The first time in history the court has defined recess to limit presidential appointment power. Then, conscience. The Affordable Care Act requires employers to provide contraception coverage, including abortion-inducing drugs. The Obama administration grants only a very narrow religious exemption, so narrow that it excludes Catholic hospitals, Christian universities, and an order of nuns who spent their life caring for the elderly and the poor. The Little Sisters of the Poor refuse to sign the government form. They argue that signing makes them complicit in providing contraception against their faith. The Obama administration fights them anyway, all the way to the Supreme Court. At oral argument, the government admits it could provide contraception through other means without involving the nuns. Yet it still demands the signature, the form, and the compliance. The Little Sisters are not seeking to deny anyone contraception. They are seeking not to be forced to provide it. But the administration treats conscience as an obstacle, not a right. Religious freedom becomes a lobbying position, not a constitutional limit. The courts must again intervene to protect the First Amendment from executive expansion. Finally, the Iran deal. July 2015. The JCPOA is reached not as a treaty, but as an executive agreement. The Constitution specifically says that treaties need 2/3 of the Senate, but Obama says this is not a treaty. January 2016, the deal takes effect. That same day, a cargo plane lands in Tehran carrying $400 million in cash, pallets of foreign currency, delivered in the dark of night. The optics are terrible. Like, can you imagine President Trump doing something like that? The same day, Iran releases 4 American hostages. Obama insists this wasn't ransom, just a debt settlement. But everyone understands what really happened. Unmarked cash, hostages freed, more money wired later. America didn't just send a message to Iran, it sent one to the world. Kidnap Americans and eventually Washington will pay. And thank the Lord, Trump withdraws from that terrible agreement in 2018. But the precedent survives. Major foreign policy by executive memo backed by secret payments, reversible by the next election.
Obama.
January 2017 arrives with the country split and exhausted. Trust in government isn't strong. It isn't even stable. It's brittle. Then the political earthquake hits. In the 2016 election, Donald Trump wins 304 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 227. An outcome the media swore could never happen. But that result doesn't come out of nowhere. It grows out of a decade-long mood. Broken promises, public meltdowns, scandals buried instead of solved, foreign crises with no clean endings, veterans left waiting, rules treated like suggestions, and a growing belief that the people in charge don't play by the same rules they enforce. That's why the Obama years didn't just pass, they reshaped the entire country. They rewired what millions of Americans expected from Washington. And when that expectation finally collapsed, it didn't leave behind a policy debate. It created an opening for a candidate the system couldn't control. If you want to understand how that opening turned into a political earthquake, that story starts next.